I have an update on my lost luggage journey and I am so excited to finally share it with you. First, I will give a brief summary on what actually happened leading up to this point in my whole lost luggage journey. However, if you are fully clued up on this, I will have a timestamp somewhere on the screen. Back in September of 2023, my husband and I, we went on a trip together to the States. We were flying from London Heathrow to Nashville with British Airways on a direct flight. Unfortunately, while waiting to board the gate, we were informed that our flight was cancelled and we managed to get on a flight a couple hours later to Newark, and Newark is in New Jersey, so nowhere near Tennessee, if that makes sense. Newark is like close to New York City. So we stayed the night in Newark and then would catch the first flight out the next morning to Nashville. So when we got to Newark, we actually waited at the carousel for our luggage to arrive, and lo and behold, it wasn't there. In all honesty, we did sort of expect that our luggage wasn't going to make it because we had quite a short window of time between us finding out our flight was being cancelled and us being put on a different flight to a different location. And in that time frame, they would have had to take all the luggage off that plane that was now cancelled and then put it back into the system and then make sure that on time it would get to our new flight. So we did sort of figure that there was a very, very likely chance that our luggage wasn't going to make it. But still, you always hold on to that hope, right? So if you do want to have like the full details of how we got on another flight, all the stress and all the context and everything that we experienced while having lost luggage on our trip in the States, I will link up 2 videos in the cards. You can watch those first because this video essentially will be a bit of a sequel to those ones. However, if you're not interested in that and you just want to know the outcome, then stick around, I would say. So by the end of the video that goes into all the details, I made 4 claims, and all of those claims were claims that would fall within the Montreal Convention, which essentially is something that protects passengers' rights from these huge airline corporations. So I filed the following claims. So the first one was compensation for all of the essentials that we bought while our luggage was lost. So for my entire trip, I had been without my luggage, which is 2 weeks or over 2 weeks, and I was in Florida as well as in Chicago in October. So you can only imagine the temperature difference that I was experiencing between spending time in my bikini on the beach versus having to wear a sweater and a coat in Chicago because it was actually quite cold. So besides needing a toothbrush and underwear and a bikini and that type of stuff, I also needed clothing for different climates. In order to file the claim, we had to keep every single receipt. So we had this big envelope where we would just stuff all the receipts in for everything that we bought that we needed, which is absolutely crazy. Because in order to file your claim, you're gonna have to upload photos of all of your receipts. So my second claim was compensation for my lost bag. So apparently when your bag is lost for over 21 days in the system and has not been able to be reunited with you, it's considered officially lost. And mine was lost for over 21 days, so it was deemed officially lost, which meant that therefore I needed to go in and claim for every single piece of luggage and clothing and whatever I packed in my suitcase, as well as the suitcase itself. Honestly, filing that claim took me an entire day. I'm not gonna lie, I had to find receipts and photos for everything that I once bought and packed in that bag, which is honestly nightmarish. Despite having a lot of like digital receipts because you know, shop online and stuff, I don't have receipts for every single thing that I own. So I ended up going and searching for photos so that I could prove that at least at one time those items were in my possession. Third claim, I know, it's like stacking on here, was for our cancelled flight. So there are different rules for this, but as far as I can gather, it boils down to when the airline could have prevented your delay, you're not entitled to it, or your delay or cancellation. For example, if the weather was bad, right? That's outside of the control of the airline. However, having a malfunction to a plane is within the control of the airline because they could either fix it or find a replacement aircraft, if that makes sense. And when it could have been prevented, you're then entitled to this particular compensation. And then the amount of the compensation depends on the distance of your flight and the hours of delay that you have experienced to get to your final destination. And since we're going on a international flight to the States on an international long haul, we were in the longest bracket of the ones, also because we didn't get there to our destination until like 12 hours later or something along those lines. We had like the longest delay possible bracket, if that makes sense. So we were entitled to having the largest largest amount of compensation in this situation. And my fourth and final claim was my compensation for the night in the hotel that we need to stay in Newark, as well as some food, because apparently you're entitled to a food allowance. But also, to be fair, we just had dinner at Heathrow, which honestly wasn't that much because we were running to our next flight, as well as we had some breakfast at the airport when we were waiting for our flight to Nashville the next morning. So that's what we put in the compensation, and obviously like half of the hotel night each, because you know, we shared a hotel room. So those are my 4 claims. So my husband was actually in a slightly different situation. So he only filed 3 claims because his luggage did show up like, I don't know, 2 weeks after it was deemed, well, not officially lost, but 2 weeks after we filed it as lost, it showed up to his doorstep and he had it back. So he didn't have to file for a officially lost luggage and list every single piece that's a your luggage type claim, which A, saved him a lot of time, and B, also meant that he submitted his claim 2 weeks prior to mine because he had his bag back, so he didn't have to wait until the 21 days passed to file all of the claims at the same time, if that makes sense. So he filed his claim 2 weeks prior to me, and I waited for the 21 days to pass, and then I still didn't have my luggage, and then I filed all 4 at once. Miraculously, 3 days after I filed my claim for my luggage that was now officially lost, it showed up to my doorstep. Obviously, I'm happy I had it back because it's never fun to lose your bag, because there's always stuff that you pack it is just not as easily replaceable or just not replaceable at all. Obviously, I'm super happy and glad that I got it back, but it would have been so much more chill to get it back either while on my trip or prior to me spending an entire day trying to find receipts for everything that I packed and trying to remember everything that I packed. So at this point, it's like early November-ish and December rolled around, and I sort of didn't really expect to hear back anything soon from British Airways, as still it's so fresh and generally they take their time to respond to these types of claims. And on top of that, Christmas around the corner. So I wasn't really expecting a very quick answer. But by the end of November, I actually got 2 emails from British Airways. I will insert the screenshots of the emails, of course, because, you know, receipts. And the outcome of my claims was that they decided to refund everything. So I was really, really glad. Obviously not the one claim for my lost luggage, which then showed up 3 days later after I filed that massive claim. But all the other 3 claims, they decided to fully reimburse me for. So that would have been my expenses that I had for buying alternatives and essentials for, you know, the stuff that I packed and that I needed on my trip, the hotel night and the food, as well as the compensation for my cancelled flight, which, to be fair, makes sense. I'm happy with it. They stated that it will take 2 weeks to wire it into my account, which I think it did. They arrived quite as like 3 separate payments, I believe, but it all showed up in my account and I was a happy camper again. However, December started to roll around and then we had Christmas, and then my husband got an email saying that they needed more time to evaluate his case, which we thought was a bit odd, since essentially we filed compensations for the same flights and he filed his 2 weeks prior to me. So theoretically, you would think that they would either handle off like things on a flight by flight basis, because there is an expiration date. Like if you don't file your compensation before a certain date, you're not entitled to it anymore. So you would either think that they would just do this on like a plane by plane basis, or that they would just do first in, first out. So we couldn't really grasp why I got a response prior to him and why he now got an email that they needed more time. So more time went by, and we did sometimes speak about it, or we're like, oh yeah, have you had anything yet? No, I haven't. Or he would make a comment when it was like an advertisement, like, oh yeah, British Airways should like reach out to them. I'm not 100% sure if he ever ended up reaching out to him and asking them to see if they could speed things up or why it was taking so long. I'm actually not 100% sure if he did, but either way, I do remember talking about it in passing, I suppose. Either way, all these things aside, it did give us a bit of a strange feeling that his was taking so much longer than mine. And obviously we were reading into that in a negative way because, you know, we're people, we do that. But we also sort of forgot about it, if that makes sense, until eventually February 2024. And lo and behold, he got an email as well from British Airways stating that they were going to reimburse everything. So he now too was going to get reimbursed for the cancellation of the flight, the hotel night and the food, or half the hotel night and half the food, and the essentials that we bought while away. All in all, like despite it taking a bit longer for British Airways to get back to my husband, and we still don't know why, either way, we're still very happy that we both were reimbursed for literally everything, which is honestly great, especially since they're quite unclear on like the expenses side of things. Like, how does that work? Do you get close to reimbursed? Like, what's an essential, what's not an essential, and anything along those lines. I have to admit though that we did not go wild with shopping, and also we didn't buy any crazy expensive stuff or anything that we would normally not buy, if that makes sense. So we did try to be sensible with it in a way, as we did end up going to outlets and bought very similar stuff as the things that we listed were in our lost luggage. Also because in the end there is no guarantee that they will reimburse you for everything that you will list as an essential, because they're really vague about it. So we did really try to act as sensible people, but as well try to like buy stuff that we liked. So the moral of the story is know your passenger rights, especially when experiencing like a delay, a cancellation, or lost luggage. Know what your rights are, look it up. There is loads of different resources on the internet. Definitely everything that points back to like the Montreal Convention is a great resource, because that's like the airline law almost. And make sure to keep all of your receipts, even for the minor stuff like food at the airport or like a bottle of water that you bought or anything along those lines, because you could get reimbursed for all of those things. And also make sure you know the timelines, because sometimes if you wait too long to file a claim, you're actually outside of the window to file that claim, and you might lose out on like hundreds of pounds or dollars or euros or wherever you're from. And maybe most importantly, use an air tag with your luggage, because they had no idea where my bag was during the majority of those 21 days. So get an air tag. I think it would have saved me a lot of hassle, especially since we found out it was just sitting in the Nashville airport and I could have picked it up a week into my trip. So, you know, air tag. Always use an air tag. From now on, I will be air tagging all the luggage that I check. And also, if you have valuables or things that you really do not want to lose, pack it in your carry-on. Let me know in the comments if you have ever had any lost luggage experiences like this and how yours got resolved, and any other tips and tricks that you have to navigate situations like these, because despite us getting reimbursed for it, it was very stressful and it did take a lot of time out of our day, not just to file the claim, but to ring British Airways like every single day. So it's not fun despite being reimbursed for it. It's just not a fun experience. So please, if you have any tips or tricks, let me know, let others know. And thank you so much for watching. Have a lovely day, and I'll see you in the next video.